Thanks, John, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity here to present ABS outlook for grants and OUCs. Before I start my talk, I need to have a few qualifications. I'm having a bit of cold, so if I cough, you have to excuse me. And also, I've been asking our crop analysts sitting in the front, but they're all hiding in the back. So if you have questions in terms of our forecasts and other type of issues, I will be more than happy to point it out who they are, and you can do the consultation with them. And naturally, we also have our former chief economist, Terry Shields, sitting in the audience, and he's very experienced, and he's been coaching me for over the years. So naturally, any questions I cannot answer, Terry will be more than happy to help. So here we go. Now, I'm going to dividing my talks into three parts. Firstly, I will present ABS price forecasts and projections over the next 5 years, and then I will look at the issues important for demand and also supply on the international stage. And then at the last part of my talk, I'll come back and look at the Australian situation. So here we go with our forecasts and projections for the price movements. In short, we expect that the prices will ease in the short term, and that's quite understandable given that we had a supply shortage in the Black Sea area due to unfavorable seasonal conditions, and now that situation has been eased or resolved, and naturally we expect that there will be some downward pressures that will ease prices from very high levels in the short term. Now, over the medium term, under the assumption that there will be favorable seasonal conditions, we expect prices in real term will continue to ease. But if you have a look at this graph, you will find we do not expect prices will return to the very low levels in the early 2000s. So we expect the prices will be landing at much more favorable positions compared with a previous decade. And also, let me reinforce that those projections are based on more, if you like, favorable or average seasonal conditions. We do not incorporate climate variabilities in our projections. So this is more like a baseline for the future, because I don't think we can confidently predicting when unfavorable seasonal conditions or what will be climate variabilities in the next 5 years. Let me just briefly outline the reasons why we see prices will ease. As presented in this table, you can see we basically think that there will be pretty strong production growth in the coming year, and that will put downward pressure on prices. The only exception you probably will notice is really for wheat. Consumption and production, they don't really change very significantly. Not unlike OUCs or coarse grains, you can see we expect the growth rates for production will be higher than growth rate for consumptions. That's because international prices for wheat have already eased. What we're doing is choosing the U.S. winter wheat, hard red winter wheat price, FOB Gulf, as the world indicator price. And because the adverse seasonal conditions in last season, that has resulted in a situation, the higher protein wheat, a bit shortage of a higher protein wheat. So we have seen a divergence between the U.S. Heart rate winter Gulf price and other wheat prices on international market. But that's because of a shortage of that high protein wheat, maintaining relatively high prices, but giving better production situation this season, we expect the gap will narrow, and therefore, in terms of a world indicator price, we do expect the U.S. heart rate winter wheat will start to ease and narrow the gap. So that's sort of the underlying reasons for our price forecast and projection over the short to medium term. Now, there are a number of issues we identified in terms of the situation over the medium term. I just list a few here, and we can talk around those points and presenting some information which is relating to those issues. Firstly, we think that the wheat production in the Black Sea area going to increase quite substantially in the foreseeable future. And another issue on the supply side is higher soybeans production in Latin American countries, especially Brazil and Argentina. And the third point is that China has implemented policies trying to increase its production of maize or corn. On the demand side, naturally, we all know biofuel policies, but in earlier sessions, we know that there have been some changes in U.S. policies in terms of biofuel, so perhaps growth rate won't be that significant compared with the past several years. And naturally, with increased incomes in developing countries, especially those in the Asian regions, we will see higher feed demand for grains. Now, supplementing with those issues, I'm going to present you with some slides. But firstly, let me just make observations in terms of production in China, especially maize production. A simple example is that the area planted to maize in China is roughly the same size as the United States, but the production in China is only about 60% of what can be achieved in the United States. So that appears to have a significant scope if productivity growth can be boosted in China, or if R&D research resulting in significant increase in yields, then there is a scope for China to catch up production quite significantly. Now, this Black Sea area, we do project that the exports and production in that region will increase quite significantly. And as you can see, last season they had adverse seasonal conditions, and then production and exports declined very significantly because of the export ban. But those bans have been lifted. And if seasonal condition holds relatively favorably in that region, then we expect there will be significant increase in that region. Mind you that one of the issues we were researching into was infrastructure support in that area. There have been some improvements in infrastructure support, especially in terms of port facilities in that region. So it appears that the scope for them to increase in production over the medium term is there, and it's quite likely.